Today we're going to teach you what's behind bloating so you can permanently get rid of bloating. When you eat food, you chew it, it goes through the esophagus, it goes down to the stomach where you have a lot of acid. And the reason why it's so acid in the stomach is so you can break down proteins. And also that acid is going to kill any microbes that are on the food. Then we have this mixture in the stomach that then ends up in the small intestine where you digest like 90% of the food. And you have all sorts of things that are helping you. You have the gallbladder, which is releasing something called bile to start breaking down the fats, but you also have secondary bile salts made by your microbes. On the left side of your body, you have this thing called the pancreas, and that's making certain enzymes to help you break down carbohydrates, proteins, and that's where you get a lot of breakdown, as well as certain microbes in the small intestine and the large intestine help release enzymes. I wanted to point that out because 20% of all the enzymes are made by the microbes. Not to mention, then we get certain acids that are created, like lactic acid. And that lactic acid also helps the microbes thrive because a lot of the good bacteria thrive in an acid environment. What does all this have to do with bloating? Well, bloating is basically some problem in the digestion. You can have two people eat the same food, and one person bloats and the other person doesn't. Why is that? One really big difference between these two people is the type and the amount and the diversity of gut bacteria that they have. And a lot of your microbial density and the health of your microbes has to do with if you took an antibiotic in your past and how many antibiotics you took in your past. The greatest lie about antibiotics is that they do cause a diminishing of your microbes, but within weeks, they'll come back to normal. That is absolutely a lie. If you ever had an antibiotic, unfortunately, the composition of your microbes have never gone back to the original diversity and the amount. Let me give you a little more details on the whiteboard. I wanted to show you something really quick. Here's a chart of all these different microbes. You don't need to know or memorize any of these, but just realize these are microbes that are normally in your gut. The L stands for lactobacillus. And then the B stands for bifidobacterium, okay? So they're just different types of microbes. After someone has a broad spectrum antibiotic, look at the percentage of loss of these microbes. 50 to 75%, 70 to 90%. Look at this, 99% loss of this microbe after you get an antibiotic. If you don't have the microbes, you're not gonna have the contribution they make towards helping you with certain enzymes. Just take a look at all of these microbes right here, and then take a look at how many of these affect your bile. And you need bile to help you break down the fats. And with this last column right here, you can see all the microbes that are involved in decreasing the risk of getting small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if you're missing these, not only are you going to have bloating, but you're going to have gas, you're going to have burping, constipation, all sorts of things. There's other things that mimic antibiotics that you need to be fully aware of. And unfortunately, that could be the reason why you have bloating. So let's just take glyphosate. Glyphosate, it's a weed killer. But Monsanto created a patent for glyphosate as an antibiotic because it kills microbes. What do you think that's doing to your microbes if you're constantly exposed to it? And they use 3 times as much glyphosate on just drying things out like non-GMO stuff. So here you are, you buy some because it's non-GMO, you think, oh, this is good. Yet you're getting even more of this antibiotic. Other things that can act as an antibiotic: birth control pills, steroids like prednisone, medications for depression, PPIs that's used for acid reflux, artificial sweeteners, fluoride in the water supply, and even statin medications. And I want to bring up one point about antibiotics. If you have to take antibiotics, I highly recommend that you always at the same time take a probiotic during the time you take the antibiotic and then after, because you're killing your microbes, so we want to replace them. We don't want to replace the bad bacteria, we just want to replace the good bacteria. A couple other things about antibiotics. There's some data that says that, oh, you have to take the antibiotic for the full dosage for 7 days or 2 weeks or 10 days, whatever. There's some new data on that's actually not true. You want to talk with your doctor about this, but this new information, the new research states that you can take it up to a point where maybe you're feeling better and then you can stop taking it. It could be 3 days, because sometimes they scare you like you have to keep taking it for this long period of time. That actually creates more of an antibiotic resistance. Long-term antibiotics, it's false. The point is, we've been taking antibiotics way too long. 80% of the antibiotics are sold for livestock and other animals that we eat. We're getting exposure to a lot of antibiotics. Even people with kidney stones, calcium oxalate stones, probably from an antibiotic. The probiotic called Oxalobacter, this microbe that eats oxalates. In fact, I bought some online. I had to get it from Europe. But these are probiotics. What happens is we take an antibiotic, it kills off certain microbes like that one, and now we end up with high oxalates and it creates damage to our body. So many people cannot digest food anymore simply because they don't have all the microbes in sufficient quantities. The solution to bloating is to take a really good high quality probiotic to put back in what has been missing since you took an antibiotic long ago. The other important thing to consume is regular fermented products, dairy fermented products like kefir, some high quality yogurt, and also fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, things like that. You have better digestion, but you also have something else. The majority of microbes in someone's body are dormant. They're asleep. One way to wake up dormant microbes is to bring the pH in the right range, to make it more acidic. And then they will basically come back to life and start working. So this is why when you take something like really acidic like kombucha or apple cider vinegar, what you're doing is you're waking up a lot of dormant microbes. And now all these microbes can help to support the bile that you need. They can help support the enzymes to break down carbohydrates like fiber and even fats, and provide the capacity to take a lot of stress off your pancreas, your gallbladder, your stomach, and your small intestine. Once you lose these microbes, these other organs have to overwork to try to compensate. They get tired and you don't produce the same amount of enzymes, so you end up with all sorts of issues. The solution is to put back in your gut the missing microbes. And I'm going to put a link down in the description of one that I recommend that may help you.